through the slide, I have a lot of links in the slides because I'm not going to go through this whole piece, but I always like to start with our organization. Actually, I'm going to start with first thing. Who knows what ICES is or has heard of ICS? Okay, that's not bad because I was like, could I just be saying like LJ2E? That's where I work, and you're all like, okay, so ICS, our mission is translating data into trusted evidence that makes policy, healthcare better, people healthier, with a vision of improved health and healthcare for everyone through world-leading research analytics. We do this using this wheel. This is our new strategic plan that we just released. And so we sort of anchor in research and analytics impact, data leadership services, strategic partnerships, public and community engagement, organizational excellence. And we conduct ourselves according to our values of excellence, integrity, relevance, collaboration, and respect. So again, this is pulled off of our website. We are one of the handful of organizations in Ontario that have been specially designated to receive and use data under the province's Personal Health Information Protection Act. So this designation is granted by the Information Privacy Commission of Ontario, the IPC, and it is subject to ongoing oversight and renewal every 3 years. So when I say renewal every 3 years, that means every 3 years we have to submit this giant report basically outlining how we are protecting the data, how we're ensuring that it's only being used for what it should be used for. And how do we achieve this? So we have, we kind of put in 3 buckets. We have really, really strong research teams. They're multidisciplinary, which is, I think, one of the reasons why we're here today. And we really focus on impact, right? So there's a lot that happens in the background, but ultimately, where is this work going to go? How is this going to influence policy? How is this going to make things better for, the health of Ontarians? And finally, one thing that I do like to stress is that we have research independence. So while our core funding is from the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Long-Term Care, we as an organization have our own board of directors. We have our own scientific advisory committee, and what we decide to put out is our decision, right? Obviously, we have close relations with the ministry. We work very collaboratively with them, but we are independent. So we have a network across Ontario. We are both from ICES Central. We are actually fully remote now when we work, so we're never really in the building. But if we were, we would be on the Sunnybrook campus. But as you notice, we have a number of satellite sites across Ontario as well, with the newest kid on the block being our ICS North site that also works very closely with Laurentian and NOSM, Northern Ontario School of Medicine. So what does this actually mean, right? So prescribed entity, I'm mentioning, PHIPAA, it's like whatever. So what this actually means is that when you go to the doctor, when you use your OHIP card, every time you swipe it, that information gets collected, right, to record why you're at the doctor, why you got admitted to the hospital, and then all that information flows into us, ICS, and that's called the administrative health data, right? And then what we can do is through a kind of algorithm where we scramble your health card number. So, I'm not going to be able to go into the data and see like Minnie Ho went to the doctor on this day. It'll just be some number, age 25, no, 49, went to the doctor on this day, saw the doctor for a flu shot, got a, I don't know, was prescribed something to go get an x-ray. That all gets into the system. And then using this unique algorithm, this kind of scrambled health card number, we call it our IKN number, we can link together all these different data sets. So this is just a sampling of the different data sets that we are custodians of. We do not own this data. And we can link it together so we can trace somebody's trajectory through the entire healthcare system. So we have records going back to 1986, I believe, and over the years with all the data sets that we have through data sharing agreements kind of now are stewards of, we have about 21 million life histories, approximately. So it's about, if you're talking points of data, it's like billions and billions of points of data. I'm happy to go into this more in depth later on if you're interested, but I just want to give a very high level piece. So we have a specific department, and literally their job is to bring in this data and to prepare it to the state where we are actually using it for research, right? So this is the data quality. DQ is not Dairy Queen, though every time I see it, I always think Dairy Queen. Data quality and information management system. And there's an entire team of folks that work with IT, make sure the infrastructure is right, make sure that all the requirements are there, all the controls are there. They do the record linkage, they do the anonymization, quality assessment, and then eventually our analysts, when we talk about our analytic staff, they're kind of down here. So we don't get to touch it until it hits this place down here. So now I'm going to pass it on to Ferhana.
So we have, I try not to block the screen, but so we have lots and lots of roles at ICES, both internal and I would say external, in the sense that we work with a lot of stakeholders. So I'll first talk about our stakeholders. So we work very closely with clinicians, researchers, statisticians from the field across Ontario, across Canada, and sometimes across the world as well. And then internally, we have primarily in our departments, we have statisticians, or what we call staff scientists and methodologists. And these two roles work very closely with our researchers or the investigators who have a research question. They'll help with the design of the study, ensuring that the methodology is sound for the data that we have. So we know data has some limitations, and so they really are the data experts and bringing everything together. So those are two key roles we have. And then we've got our analytical staff, so our analysts, and many of which have math backgrounds and have been very successful, at least on my team. So I'm very happy to be here with hearing about math backgrounds. And then we've got our epidemiologists who really, their role, some of them will be analytical, but primarily they're the individuals who come up with the data analysis plans. They do the manuscript writing, so publishing reports. So they're more non-analytical as well. And then aside from that, we also have project managers, research assistants who all support the different research projects that we do have. And then again, going back to who do we work with? So we have three general categories of individuals we work with or stakeholders. The first one being ICS agents. So we have an affiliation or a status that scientists or researchers can obtain. It's an ICS scientist. So these are primarily, again, the clinicians that I was referring to, or the researchers from across Ontario or across Canada as well in some cases. And then, so the ICS scientists, again, there is a whole application process. What I found, I don't have the stats for you for how many we have, but essentially, once you become an ICS scientist, you kind of stay there until you retire. And I haven't seen, and even after you retire, generally these scientists come back and they continue to do research, whether they're leading their own research or collaborating with others and being a co-investigator. It's quite common. So once you're with us, you kind of stay. And then we've got our external researchers. So these are individuals, again, they'll be investigators who receive grants, and then they'll partner up with an ICS scientist to do the work at ICS as well. And then we've got a large group of students and trainees. So these will be master's students, PhD students, and then our trainees will be postdocs or fellows who have research ideas, also grants and funding, and they'll come to ICS to access the data and do their own analysis. So ICS will prepare cohorts or link the data for these individuals, and they will go on to do their own research. And some of these projects also involve high computing services, so they'll do AI modeling and whatnot on our high computing services. And then the next category are knowledge users. So knowledge users are essentially individuals or organizations from our community. So the Ministry of Health, Ontario Health, different public health units will have research questions, and they'll approach us to do the analysis and do a summary report for them as well. So we have that avenue. And then finally, our third group are third-party researchers. So this is, again, allowing access to data or analytical services for public and private sector. And under this realm, we have a few students and trainees as well who work with us. Okay, so we just released our annual report. So we had lots of numbers to share, but you'll get the slide deck. What I will highlight is around our research capacity. So Minnie referred to our data sets or our data holdings. Last year we had 117 data holdings. So these are our administrative data sets that look across the care continuum. It'll be survey data as well. So the Canadian Community Health Survey, that's a data holding. But in addition to this, and what's not on there, are our project-specific data as well. So some clinicians will bring clinical data that they've collected at a certain hospital that they work at, and then we have the ability to take the data from that data custodian and become the data custodian as well and build that into our research. And so annually we have about 30 to 40 projects that bring in project-specific data as well. So our data sets are continuously growing. And then knowledge generation. So just to give you a sense of how much work we do, last year we had 1,174 active projects that were researcher-led and 143 requests that went through our data and analytic services for our private and public sector. And finally, knowledge translation. I'm just going to do a plug for ICES. We do have a X or Twitter handle, and we have almost 17,000 followers. We also have Instagram. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. Okay, and then so how are we organized? So again, we're looking at the care continuum of individuals in Ontario. And so the way we've organized ourselves is we have 8 different research programs. Each program is led by a program leader who is has their own specialty. They're an ICES scientist. For the cancer program, for example, our program lead is a biostatistician. And each scientist or student or staff will fall under one primary program. But we work very closely together so that we actually span different programs as well. So some scientists will have an affiliation with multiple programs, or they'll work on projects that are in other programs as opposed to just their primary program. So lots and lots of collaboration. In the next few slides, we just have a few examples of some impactful work that we've done recently. And just to give you a few examples, we have a few online calculators that improve the awareness of individual health risks. So the 2 latest calculators that we've released, or our project teams have released, one was in the kidney and dialysis transplantation team, and another team worked on dementia. So these 2 calculators, the project team essentially developed 2 risk algorithms using administrative data and made this calculator public. I believe they had about 250,000 hits within the first 5 days of releasing the calculator. So the dementia calculator, for example, it's really allowing individuals to understand how their brain works and then how they can actually reduce the risk of developing dementia. So that's for the general public to access this information. And then a few more examples, just really high level again. We work with project teams who are running clinical trials. And so again, the unique opportunity here is that we're taking clinical data and combining it and linking it to administrative data. So the benefit to this is it's an efficient way to run clinical trials. It's also maximizing the number of participants that are involved. Another example, or another 2 examples of unique work we do, we work very closely with our Indigenous partners. And so our process there is really involving our Indigenous communities from the beginning. So really, many times they're coming up with research questions. Our team, if we come up with research questions, we work together to develop an analysis plan, ensuring the data is representative and that it's data that they would like us to use. So starting at that point and then carrying through all the way to the end, where we're actually publishing the information, communicating what the results mean within the community, within their leaders, and also across Ontario and Canada as well. And then the last example, making older women count. So this one was a really cool project as well. It was the Women's Age Project. And essentially, it was looking at data to profile older women, because we know within medical literature and media, they're often not represented. So this whole initiative is really advocating for older women and publishing data and results on this group of women. Pass it to me.
Thank you, Ferhana. I'm just keeping an eye on the time. All right, I'm going to go through these slides very quickly. So Ferhana talked a little bit about, sort of our research programs, and those are primarily to support the ICS agents. That's just a term that we have internally. What I'm going to talk about next is the support for our knowledge users, again, a term that we make. Policy. Typically, these are policy people, and then also our third-party, sort of non-ICS affiliated folks. public and private. I love putting up the slide, not only because it's my department, but also because it's really hard to get pictures of everyone, especially during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, Data Analytics Services team is actually a slightly newer unit to ICS as an organization, and it was really set out and started because we were hearing feedback about people. This is, I guess, actually one small step back, sort of the whole kind of more open data, making data more accessible to people, was something that kind of came along probably almost a decade now ago. So we started Data Analytics Services as a response, one of the responses to making data more accessible to Ontario. And then different researchers and organizations. So this team was built up, and just over the pandemic, we hit the sort of 1,000 project mark. So we were very, very proud of ourselves, very excited. And as you can see, this is the team. And Ferhana, when she was talking about our staff scientists and our epidemiologists, research analysts, methodologists, these are the folks that are involved. So this slide really just captures the knowledge user, some examples of what we give to our knowledge users. So I'm sure you've heard of something a little called, COVID-19. So during that time, our organization, I swear we must have worked like 24 hours a day, it felt like. We were charged with providing a lot of the information that then went up to the table at the ministry. At which point they would make the decision. So I want to make a differentiation in terms of we provide the evidence, we don't make the policy, we inform the policy. So that's our role within sort of that sphere. But these are just some of the examples of what we generated. And again, so much work in the background to kind of come up with these little screen captures that I put here. So we had a dashboard going. We had things on Twitter that we were kind of publicizing and pushing out there in the hopes that it would be helpful to the public, to public health units. When I talk about impact and policy as well, the example that I want to highlight too was some of you may have heard that now you can go to the pharmacist and get, if you have a skin condition, you can get a prescription for that, you can get it for pink eye. They've expanded their ability to prescribe certain medications for minor ailments. So one of the applied health research questions that we did helped inform this policy change, right? So those are just sort of two examples of our, our support for people that we call knowledge users, which typically are those that are very tied to policy or program kind of evaluation and management. This next slide, I just wanted to touch very briefly about our public and private sector researchers. So again, these are researchers that do not have an ICS affiliation. However, they can come from academia, they can come from, in some cases, our private sector clients. So pharmaceutical companies tend to be the ones that have contacted us the most. What I really wanted to point out was at a previous forum, presentation, my colleague, oh gosh, not backwards twice. My colleague had made a bit of a word cloud because sometimes people get the misconception that, oh, it's private sector. Are those projects super different? Are they really like shady? They're not, I promise you. And in fact, we have very special kind of provisions put in place when we work with our private sector clients. We have transparency principles. They have to sort of fit a certain set of criteria in terms of what their questions are to us. However, what he really wanted to demonstrate was that the types of questions and the areas that they were asking us to look at are really not different from all the other kind of typical ICS projects that we have, right? Just so happens that it may come from Janssen, may come from AstraZeneca. And a lot of these organizations, especially the clinical research organizations, the CROs, do actually publish a lot of the work that we do with them as well. So again, I try to insert links everywhere. So if you want to learn a little bit more, you can. And I think we're coming up to the last slide.
So this slide is just representing ICS and our culture. So Minnie referred to the fact that we went virtual. So during COVID, we went home in, I think, March 15th, and we didn't come back. But our culture, I have to say, has really remained the same. Our culture is, I think, the key word that always pops out whenever I talk about work with my friends or family or at events like this, it's collaboration. So those hallway chit chats went from talking about what happened that morning, to, hey, how do you run this model? Or what's the macro you use for this? And it's a mix of that. And now we've transferred that onto virtual platforms. So MS Teams chat is our best friend. We have lots and lots of meetings, and also lots of activities outside of sort of our everyday work. And so we do an annual barbecue, which is always a hit. Most of the organization comes down for a quick burger, but it's like a 2-hour just chit chat. We do lots of activities. We've got a social committee who will run different events, and they're very, very creative. I'm so surprised and blown away by the talent. So there's a lot of comedians, I would say, and very, very crafty individuals at ICS. And then we also have like a philanthropy club as well. So they run different fundraisers and events. I know we went down to the food bank once, and my funny story or my fun fact is that somebody from my grade 1 class recognized me and said I look exactly the same as I was 5 years old. So that is going to be my fun fact for life, because I don't know how they picked me out in a crowd, but it was a good event, and it was nice to get together as a community. And now that we're virtual, our community has actually expanded. So we have staff across Ontario, and we do have some events or workshops at ICS that we go in at Central. And another key aspect of the organization is that we do believe in growth. So not just internal opportunities, but we also have a fund for education. So each staff member gets about $12.50 to take a course, so to enhance their skills, to improve their skills, and also an opportunity to collaborate and network as well. Do you want to add anything?
So I think our presentation is probably a little bit different from the one previously, where, which I loved. Sorry, it wasn't a knock at all, because I think you drew a lot of relevance between your degree right now. What are you doing right now in terms of career trajectory? So what I will say as well is we've kind of gone through very, very quickly the type of work that we do. We've sort of mentioned that yes, people with math backgrounds, actually all different types of backgrounds come to us. There's a lot more we can talk to, but to Ferhana's point, just to build on the growth piece, we obviously love it when people stay and they grow and they move through different roles. We also don't expect it. We know that we're not going to like latch onto people when they come and be like, you can never leave us. So we have a lot of staff that come. They come in these, and often in a research analyst, maybe epidemiologist role, they may stay several years and then they move on to other organizations with the knowledge that they've built, right? So one of the things we really do pride ourselves on is that we are a very large training ground, right? So if you know nothing about administrative data, that's okay. If you know nothing about health, care or health, that's okay too. If you know nothing about the programming languages that we use, that's fine. I've hired people that have no idea of what the programming languages we are, but again, to our previous presenter's point, they had this really great ability to understand the picture and to get from point A to point B, and to figure out what that path was, right? I think their background was probably like more of a pure statistics and math background, and they went on to have a very, very successful career, and now they moved on to industry, and they're a data scientist where they are right now in industry. So all of that is to say that we welcome all types, and if you want to learn more, then please reach out to us, because in this very short time, it's hard to capture everything. But yeah, that's it.